Hello and welcome to the Monroe Method Clancast. I am Jason Monroe. This is episode 144. It's very windy today. We had a weather warning this week for wind. It was super bad 2 days ago, but it's still kind of breezy. But fortunately for you, I have this little, I don't know, I can't remember what the term for it is, the correct one. It's either dead rat or dead mouse, which it's not an actual dead rat. It's this little furry thing that you clip into the top of this microphone, which gets rid of all the noise, all the wind, all the breezes, not the noise, but the blowy stuff. So it shouldn't affect it. Anyway, good morning. I've not recorded one of these for a while. The last 3 episodes were all done well in advance, so I like it when I get a break like that, because it means I've got lots of new things to talk about, and it's all fresh and new. When I do kind of episodes close together, the topics might be the same, but the kind of underlying message is very similar. And I'll maybe reference a lot of the same things. But anyway, something new to talk about today. I feel like I want to talk about weight loss medications. So I have this client, Abigail, who is doing incredibly well. She is losing weight at a great pace. She feels fantastic. She's proud of what she's doing. She actually feels like she's making change. She can feel the difference this time because she's not just jumped into something, started following numbers or rules or restrictions and, trying to make the scales come down. She is finally coming at weight loss from the right angle. And that is why she is not only going to lose weight, I'm quite confident that she is going to be someone who loses that weight for life. She went on an all-inclusive holiday for a week. She came back 0.5 pound heavier. And that disappeared within days. Now I'm always conscious of when I say things like that, because I had a big chat with someone about this yesterday. Somebody in the group we'll come back to Abigail in a second, but someone in the group is going through a very tough time, very stressful, very tough, very busy. And I actually think I spoke about this person recently, about them being a unicorn client, one of these people who comes in. I can't remember the episode, but it was a few ago, where, many people have dozens of things to work on. Some people only have a couple of things to work on, and if you can resolve those 1 or 2 things, their weight flies down. That's that person. She lost 4.5 pounds over the last fortnight, which is just the thing for her. She's losing 4 and 5 pounds, 6 pounds every fortnight, because she has nailed, I think it was emotional eating we spoke about. She's nailed one thing, and it's been life-changing. She has had a very tough time recently, and she still lost 4.5 pounds. And this is the explanation I want to give. We don't celebrate, or I don't celebrate the numbers. I know I only said 4.5 pounds to tell you, but the explanation that I gave to Megan was, we're not celebrating the fact that the scales are coming down. We're not celebrating the fact that you've lost 4.5 pounds in a fortnight, right? That it's not like, oh, I know things are tough, but look at you, you've still lost 4 pounds. It's not about that. It's about, you have gone through a very tough time where in the past you would have easily slipped back into emotional eating. And this is what she said, that was one of the things that she was proud of. Oh, listen to this. Listen. Did you hear that? That was the gate. I greased all the gates a couple of weeks ago. I came on a walk with a big tub of industrial grease and a pair of rubber gloves, and I greased all the joints of the gates. So you will no longer, you'll hear the click from the metal clasps, but there is no more screaming gates. You'll be pleased to know. Hello, baby. Like she said, I could very easily have slipped into emotional eating, and I didn't. And I had a big chat with her about it, explaining you could have easily done it, but you didn't do it because it's becoming less easy. Because you're no longer seeing the attraction. You're no longer seeing the benefits. Because the thing is, the longer you go without doing something and the better you feel while not doing it, the harder it is to go back to something, if that makes sense. Like, I talk about this quite a lot, where if you can just get someone to break the cycle for a week or two, because you wake up every day. I need to keep track of all the stuff I've spoke about so I can close all these different stories that I've started. If you start every day feeling bloated, sluggish, tired, lethargic, still full from the night before, from the large dinner that you had, and then all the snacking that you did in front of the TV, and that last thing you grabbed to eat on your way up to bed, and you do that every day, you get to a point where that becomes the norm. I find that a lot of weight loss, a lot of the success of weight loss, of even just getting started with weight loss, comes from changing your norm. So you're not supposed to wake up tired and sluggish and bloated, like you have a food hangover. You've got a foggy head and you can't get out of bed and all this stuff from the night before. You're not meant to feel like that. But it's happening as a result of the way that you're eating the night before. And you spend so long waking up like that, so many days, so many consistent days, where that's just how it is. And then when people come to work with me, and it's all new and exciting and shiny and super motivated, and they go through that first week, and they're no longer overeating, they're starting to make improvements, their weight's dropping dramatically, all that bloat, extra calories, food weight's dropping, they're losing 5, 6, 7 pounds in the first week, and they're waking up in the morning easier, lighter, brighter, rested, no longer bloated, no longer with all that food weight. And this is why, the vast majority of people come back to me at the end of week 1 and say, my God, I feel incredible. Not because I've done anything, not because the Monroe method is magic, but it's because they've now stopped doing what they were doing. They've stopped doing things that make themselves feel like shit. So you get people to stop making themselves feel like shit, and of course, they feel better. And the trick now is, how do we keep that going? We need you to keep that feeling going. And then you get to this transition point where, let's say I've worked with someone for 2 months, okay, and they've been super consistent for the first 2 months. They're feeling incredible. They can't believe how good they feel. They can't believe how much they were eating before, and they never want to go back to that. All the usual stuff. And then something happens. And they have that one day, or that one night, where, an old habit sneaks back in, an old thought sneaks back in. They've had a takeaway. You're not supposed to have takeaways. Now you feel bad, because takeaways, this is what you did when you did Slimming World. You said you weren't going to do it, and then you ordered it. And now you've got lots of anxiety around it. And now you need to eat the whole thing, because you need it all gone, and you don't, because, you don't want to know that you don't want any reminder that it happened, because you feel guilty. So you eat the whole thing so you can go put the tub in the bucket. Now you're sitting there with these horrible thoughts, and you go to the fridge and you grab some chocolate and you grab this. Okay, so they revert back to type for a day. Remember, they've just had a month or two of doing brilliant, and they've had this one day, and they wake up the next day and they feel awful. And it just takes, and I like it when that happens. It's not pleasant for the person to go through, but I like it when people have this experience, because it lets them go back and say, shit, that's how I was waking up every single day. Because, like I said, when you get used to that and it becomes the norm, this is just how I feel. This is how I wake up every day. It becomes normality. And I think this is one of the reasons that people find it so hard to break cycles, because when you've spent so long feeling like shit, feeling exhausted, feeling drained, lacking energy, crashing in the afternoon, propping yourself up with sugar and caffeine, when you've spent so long going through that cycle of taking very poor care of yourself, it just becomes, the feelings that come with it, the way that you feel every day, that just becomes your normality. So I find that a lot of weight loss consistency, effort consistency, comes from people doing something for long enough to break their norm, doing something for long enough to feel good enough, so that after 2 months or 3 months, when you do have that relapse, or you have that night out or that meal out, or whatever the thing is, and then you go back to your old behavior, your old all or nothing mentality, and you say, fuck it, might as well keep going and start again on Monday. and you wake up on that Monday and you feel exactly like you did 3 months ago before you got started. And I like to use that. I would do a check-in with someone then, and I would use that and say, look, I want you to remember how you felt when you woke up that day. Not the guilt and all that shit. But I want you to remember how you physically felt. How did you feel when you woke up that morning? How did that day go? How much did you struggle to focus and concentrate on work? How tired were you? Did you feel like you needed to go for a nap? Did you start thinking about sugar and caffeine halfway through the morning and into the afternoon to try and get you through the day? That's how you used to think and feel every single day because of the shitty way that you used to take care of yourself. So, people are always talking about willpower. Like, how do I make myself do something? How do I force myself to stick to something for long enough to lose weight? You don't. You don't force yourself to do anything. You get yourself to want to do it. And you use moments like that. See, people would use moments like that to try and guilt themselves and shame themselves and make themselves feel bad. And, God, you're so greedy. You're never going to change. You're always going to be like this. This is what you always do. When has that ever successfully helped anyone achieve anything? Never. Negative reinforcement does not lead to anything positive. What do you do instead? You get curious. You look at it and say, do you know what? That's just reminded me why I got started. The way that I'm feeling today after that week of overeating has just reminded me how bad I felt every single day. And it's given me a comparison, a contrast between how I felt every day for the last few months. And that is something I do not want. That's the key word. That's something I do not want to go back to. This is how you get yourself to want to do things. It's not about forcing. It's not about willpower or focus or motivation. You get yourself to a place where you do not want this to be your reality anymore. You want this to be your reality anymore. Forevermore. So this is the way that I coach people, right? It's getting them to a place where they want to be the goal versions of themselves. And you think, oh, but I do want to be 9 stone, 10 stone. I do want to fit in a size 8, size 10. You like the idea of it. If you wanted to, it would be happening right now. Now, this isn't the same as you don't want it enough. It's not the same. That's the bullshit PT. You don't want it enough. You need to try harder. You see, the problem is, the playing field is always leveled against you, right? It's never a, we have the same 24 hours in a day nonsense. It's never a, it's a 50-50 choice. You do the thing or you don't do the thing. The playing field is not that level. It is always balanced in the favor of staying the same. If you were supposed to be 10 stone right now, you would be. You're whatever weight you are right now is the exact weight you are supposed to be, because that's the way you're living your life. Your weight's always right where it's meant to be. If it was meant to be any different, it would be. It would have happened. Now, you don't like where you are. It's not ideal. It's not comfortable. Some of you are a little bit unhappy. Some of you are absolutely miserable. But it is easier to stay the same. It's easier not to change. So it's never a 50-50, either do the thing or don't do the thing. It's always balanced in my head, 75% in favor of staying the same. And a lot of the work you have to do is leveling out the playing field. This is why, when people work with me in the first week, we do all the mindset work first. If you just give somebody if somebody comes in the door immediately and you go, right, here's the number of calories I want you to stick to, off you go, they've got no chance of succeeding. If they can force themselves to stick to that for a little while, awesome. They'll do some progress. But very soon, the old habits will come back, the things that we didn't identify, didn't understand, didn't work on, didn't bring to the surface and realize were happening. That's the whole purpose of the first week in the Monroe Method, where we get people to do, or I get people to do that internal work, actually giving a voice to the things that are going on inside that have led them to the position they're in. Like, if you don't know what it is you're supposed to be changing, how are you supposed to change? Everybody wants to change their weight. but nobody knows how to do it. They understand they need to eat less, but when you're already having to eat as much as you are to get by each day, but it's taking your weight to a place you don't want it to be, how are you supposed to force yourself to eat less? You need to find your own pathway to becoming lighter, fitter, stronger, leaner, smaller, whatever your goal is. Right, let me hook all this back together so that it makes sense. I feel like a lot of consistency happens in the first few weeks. And if you can get somebody to go through that experience, whether it's the first few weeks or the first couple of months where things feel amazing and you keep reinforcing that, like I do this, I call it creating positive feedback loops. So many people create negative feedback loops, right? Where it's like, oh, this bad thing's happened, I might as well go do this. Now that I've done that, I might as well go do this. And it's this kind of negative cycle of negative behavior, negative thoughts, leading back to more negative behaviors. And they get into negative feedback loops, which I find is the reason that a lot of people stay stuck with their weight. So I like to look for and show people their positive feedback loops. You know, when I do a check-in with someone and we get to the very first section, question 1, tell me about all your NSVs. Tell me about all your non-scale victories. Tell me about all the positive things that are happening that don't have anything to do with the number on the scale. Some people will put a couple things in, it depends on their mood. Some people will put heaps of stuff in. And I take that moment and say, right, I want you to remember this stuff has not just happened by itself. You have done something that has led to each of these happening. The reason that you feel more calm and around food and more in control is because you're planning your meals. You're doing your food shop every week. You're making sure you've actually got food in the cupboard to put meals together. Versus what you were doing before, coming home from work, opening the fridge, seeing there's nothing and opening Just Eat. You're sleeping better. Your heartburn and indigestion are gone. Your acid reflux is a non-issue. Why is that happening? Well, you're no longer overeating. You're no longer eating right before bed where you put a bunch of food and then lie down and make these things worse. And then we create positive feedback loops, right? Here's the thing that's happening. Here's the action that led to it. If I want to keep receiving this benefit, if I want to keep feeling this thing, I need to make sure that I keep doing this thing. So we create these positive feedback loops. And like I said, we want at some point that negative thing to happen because it just makes for a great coaching point. Like people have maybe never been coached through these things before. They've, oh, you've overeaten all weekend. What would Slimming World say? It's okay. Don't worry about it. Just draw a line and move on. That's not coaching. That's brushing things under the carpet by someone who's not equipped to help you. So we want that moment to happen. I want them to come back for their check-in. I want to see the big high-calorie days on their tracking so I can say, right, let's talk about this. Why did it happen? Set the scene, set the stage for me. It's Friday, you've just finished work, or maybe something happened through the working day. You've got home and you decided you were going to do what and why and how were you feeling at the time. And then we'll talk about it and work through it and say, right, and you woke up on Monday feeling the exact same way you did 3 months ago, the week before we started working together. So nothing bad happened. This is a positive stepping stone in your journey, but I want you to remember that that little reminder you got on Monday, that's how you were waking up every single day. So we want to get to that transition point where waking up every morning, feeling rested, lighter, brighter, not bloated, not still full of food from the night before, becomes your norm. Instead of this is just how I feel every day. I think once you allow that to become your norm, it becomes harder to break the cycle. Anyway, this has not been a chat about weight loss medications. So let's finish off the Megan story. It's not about celebrating weight loss no matter what. It's celebrating that you went through a very tough time where you could have easily gone back. I didn't finish that part actually. The whole thing about it was, the longer I work with people, the less easy it becomes to go back to old behaviours because people realise how shit it makes them feel. So Megan has had a super tough time, very stressful, And that would, which when she says she could easily have gone back to it, what she means is, in the past, here's what I would normally have done. I would have ordered takeaways. I would have eaten sharing bars of chocolate. But she's not doing it because it's not easy anymore. Because it's no longer something she wants to do. She's losing 4, 5, 6 pounds a fortnight. We've done a few check-ins. She's lost a significant amount of weight already, and she's feeling incredible for it. She's feeling incredible because of all those things I mentioned. She's not waking up in the morning feeling like she used to. And that's why when she goes through a stressful time, the thought's still there. I could order a takeaway, that would make me feel good. I could go buy a bunch of snacks on the way home. But then she remembers how she's going to feel when she wakes up in the morning. And that is no longer attractive to her. And I know that sounds wild, but the example I always use here is think about alcohol. You know, I had a chat with someone who's I would consider to be a close friend. I see them regularly and have done for years. And we were talking about people with obesity, and she said, "How do people let themselves get like that?" And you know, it was a great opportunity to educate someone who's not in my world, who doesn't understand these things, and say, it's not about letting yourself get like anything. It's about seeing the benefit in doing something that sadly leads to a negative health outcome. So let me ask you the same question. If I look at someone who's lying on the floor on a Sunday morning, hugging the toilet, being sick, I could say, why do they let themselves get like that? I asked her if she has hangovers. Do you get sick? She's like, oh yeah. I'll usually wake up first thing in the morning and run to the toilet to be sick. And I go, well, I'll ask you the same question. How do you let yourself get like that? Because you've literally just told me what you're like with a hangover. You know what you're like with a hangover. I'm sure you don't want to be glued to a toilet on a Sunday morning, spewing your guts up, and yet you see the attraction of drinking alcohol. So it's not that people let themselves get like anything. Nobody wakes up every day going, woohoo, let's see how much weight we could put on today. Let's eat as much as we can. It doesn't work like that. In the same way that people don't say, do you know, it's Thursday right now. Is it? No, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday right now. My kids go back a week today. I'll get more in sync with the days of the week then. It's Wednesday right now. Nobody is sitting going, oh, I cannot wait to be hungover on Sunday. I cannot wait to not sleep on Saturday night. To roll around in my bed on a Sunday morning, fighting the sickness, fighting the sore head, dying to get up and get a drink and painkillers, but also not wanting to get up and get a drink and painkillers. Nobody's doing that. Those people are thinking, I can't wait to go out on Saturday night. Saturday night's going to be so much fun. Can't wait till Saturday till I can crack that wine open or go to that thing or see those friends. We rarely think of the outcome of our actions and realise that we're also choosing them. Anyway, Christ, so did I finish Megan? Yeah. The thing that we're celebrating about Megan's progress isn't that she's lost 4.5 pounds when she's been busy. It's that while she's been busy, she has continued to think and act in alignment with the goal version of her that she's trying to become. So all that means is she's gone through a tough time where normally she would have done X, Y, and Z. She's went through that tough time. And that X, Y, and Z would have led to her weight going up. She's went through that tough time. She's not done X, Y, and Z, and her weight's continued to come down. That's the celebration part. The fact that that person is still acting like the goal version of themselves, even when life gets tough. And the result of that, the happy bonus byproduct, whether intentional or not, is that our weights continue to come down. And that's a great sign for the future. For her long-term weight maintenance. You know, she's went through periods where it would be very easy to go back to this, and she didn't do it. Now, back to Abigail. So Abigail is doing fantastic. She's losing weight consistently. She lost weight on an all-inclusive holiday. She feels amazing. Everything's changing. I reckon she's going to go all the way for life, right? And she asked me yesterday, can I ask, what do you think about Manjaro? It's not something I'm taking, but it's something I'm thinking about. You know, is that something that you would support? And I gave her a detailed reply that basically said, I am all for weight loss medications, 100%, but only for the people who need them. So I explained to her that, you know, these medications were created for people with diabetes to help them stabilize their blood sugar, lose some weight. There are people with type 2 diabetes who are on these medications who are reversing their type 2 diabetes, which is incredible. And then there are people who are living with obesity. Just so that people understand that obesity is not just a classification on a BMI scale. It's not just once you reach a certain number on the scale, you're obese, right? It's unfortunate that they brought those two terms together. Obesity is a genetic disorder. And part of that genetic disorder in people who are living with obesity is that they don't have any, or they have very little, sometimes no, appetite regulation. They don't know when they're full. They know when they're hungry. Sometimes they don't know when they're hungry. They don't know when they're full. So they quite regularly clear every plate. Like the advice of, eat slowly, eat mindfully, don't eat in front of the TV. That advice is helpful. And making sure that they have a balanced diet is helpful. But it doesn't solve a lot. There are people who genuinely cannot bring their weight down because their body is working against them. Now, that doesn't mean to say that, they get a free pass for all the weight that they've gained. Like in a lot of instances, their diet's a big problem. They don't eat fruits and vegetables. They don't eat protein. They snack a lot. They eat a lot of high calorie foods like that. If you're someone living with obesity and you have a terribly balanced diet and you don't take part in any exercise, your weight's going to be considerably higher. If someone living with obesity controlled all of those things, did take part in exercise, did have a well-balanced diet, it would offset a lot of that weight gain, but they would still be living with the struggles of appetite regulation, and their weight would still be higher than what we might think a healthy weight for them might be. So these medications, in that instance, are a miracle. You're basically saying, right, if you inject yourself with this, you're going to get something back that you don't have. You're going to get something that you've never had before. You're going to feel full. You're going to feel less hungry. And then there's the other 90% of the world who are abusing weight loss medications to achieve bodies that they won't be equipped to live in. People who have just decided, I've tried all the yo-yo diets in the world, let's give this medication thing a try. Or people like Abigail, who has seen friends or family or people on Instagram losing a lot of weight taking something. Of course that's going to be appealing. Of course that's going to be attractive. Here you are, doing all the hard work, working on your habits, working on your behaviours, working on all the reasons behind why you have weight to lose, and here's this other person just stabbing themselves with a needle and not feeling hungry. Of course it's going to feel attractive when that's the impression that you get on social media, when they're posting their weekly weigh in. Oh, that's me down another 4 pounds. Hashtag Manjaro journey. But I said to Abigail, I am not against you taking weight loss medications, but what I am going to do is present you with all the facts, and then you can make an informed decision. And I just explained to her the same thing that I'll explain to you, that in fact, let me get the post up that I put on Instagram yesterday. Because what did the title say? Weight loss medications. Weight loss meds change your appetite, not your habits, not your behaviour, not your mindset. Actually, I'm going to read out the caption. So I had a client ask me this. I've told you that part. I've explained this part, right? In those cases, talking about obesity, diabetes, people with broken appetite regulation, the medication can genuinely change lives. But most people using them right now, they're not dealing with that. They're dealing with habits. Emotional eating, using food to escape, snacking after the kids go to bed, rewarding yourself after a tough day, reaching for chocolate to avoid uncomfortable feelings. Weight loss medications don't change any of that. They just mute your appetite. The food noise quiets, the weight drops, and you feel in control. You think you've cracked it. I'm no longer doing those things anymore. But here is what the studies are telling us so far. More than, it's just a little more than, but more than 90% of people, 90% regain all the weight that they've lost within 10 months of coming off the medication. Now, before I do that, listen to this gate that I'm about to go through. This was, okay, that little squeak didn't count because I didn't grease that bit. But the joints are not screaming. Listen to that. Smooth action. So, over 90% of people regain all the weight they've lost within around 10 months of stopping the medication. That's what an analysis of 11 separate studies has told us about the current situation with weight loss meds. I was going to say, it's actually less than 1 in 10 people, but how do you get less than 1 in 10? It's not quite 1 in 11. So we'll say around 1 out of 10 people are maintaining their weight loss. By the way, that's not forever. The study's only done it, this is only up to 10 months. So 9 people out of 10 are back at square one within 10 months of coming off it. 1 person goes longer. That doesn't mean to say they keep it off for life. It just means to say they keep the weight off at least longer than 10 months. And here's the crazy thing, right? 90% of people going back to square one. Now, there are no facts and figures to support this. This is just my own anecdotal assessment. But I think that's a lower success rate than Slimming World. I've always given Slimming World about a 15% success rate. It's just my own take on it. Like, there's no figures to support it. The ex chief finance director of Weight Watchers once famously said, was it 80% or 85%? 80% or 85%, this quote, 80% have to come back and do it again. That's where your business comes from, when he was kind of explaining why the Weight Watchers model works so well and makes so much money. He was asked, what is it that you think makes Weight Watchers so great? Well, it's a simple fact that, 8 out of 10 people have to come back and do it again. So that's where my kind of 15% success rate estimation comes from. So for me, like, weight loss medications are already worse or less successful than Slimming World. So there are lots of people coming into the Monroe Method just now, and like, one of the questions I ask is about their diet history. So diet history always comes up, and it's funny because diet histories just get filled as the years go on with all the latest fads and trends. Almost everybody has Slimming World and Weight Watchers in there. A lot of them will have Herbalife, Juice Plus. A lot of them will have like forever living cleanses, detoxes, fasting. And then it's like, then I tried keto. Then I tried Zoe. And it's like, yeah, you're someone that just goes along with what's popular at the time. And now weight loss medications have been around enough that people are starting to, on their list of diet history, because this is what people are thinking of, or how they're thinking of weight loss medications. They're thinking of it as a diet, and their recent weight, and more recently, injections, medications. So, and I said this a long time ago, that weight loss medications were the next big yo-yo diet. And the studies are supporting that. The evidence is supporting that. 90% of people putting weight back on the minute they stop that is supporting it. So I know it's attractive. I know the idea of just paying some money to take a magic injection to make your weight come down is super attractive. But you need to think longer term. I'm not even going to mention the health stuff, right? Forget that. Like, it's a bit like vaping, right? These things have not been around long enough for us to know what the long-term effects are. Basically, everybody who's taking weight loss medications now, they are guinea pigs for what we're going to learn about them in the future. let's put this thing out there and see what happens. Let's stop doing tests in a lab. Let's just give it to millions of people and just watch what happens over the next 20 to 30 years. Anyway, if you're going to do these things, please do it because you need it. Am I someone who genuinely needs this? Or am I someone who simply has a bunch of habits that I need to do the hard work on to resolve to change my weight? Because if you take it and you don't need it, it's not going to work. The purpose of a weight loss medication is not to make your weight go down. That's a byproduct. The purpose of a weight loss medication is to help suppress appetite, which is useful for people who struggle with that sort of thing. If that's not your problem, or that problem's self-created through your imbalanced diet, then it's not going to solve anything. Anyway, I know this is a very long episode because I'm still recording it back at the house, but I hope there's been some value, and I will see you next time.